Everybody get up, no need to cram now. We got a real jam going down, going down, going down, going down, going down, going down. Welcome to the IntelliJAMS.
We are back at IntelliJAMS. Once again, we are starting to bring more people into the jam so that you guys get better perspectives. Today, I'm excited to introduce Juan Cruz, who is leading CRO and experimentation at Sharma Brands. Juan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Alex. Excited to be here and share a couple of insights that I have using IntelliJAMS.
Amazing. So Juan's been doing a lot of experiments around subscriptions specifically. So today I'm hoping that we can jam around subscriptions, experimenting with subscriptions, and kind of give all of you an idea of what can you test, what to look out for, what metrics you should potentially be paying attention to. So Juan, I know you have two that we want to kind of like dissect a bit today. We've got one where we are giving our customers the ability to subscribe from collection pages. And then we have another where we are making subscription the default on a product page. Which of those are you more excited to start with? We can kind of go in either direction.
Yeah, I think we can start with pre-select the subscription option. I think it's easier to understand. It's probably the low-hanging fruit for subscription businesses.
Yeah, let's start there. So this one's an interesting one for me because I think if you are someone inside of CRO, this is probably like the thing every subscription brand wants to start testing. Do I make it the default or don't I? So what have you seen? What did the experiment show you? What should people be doing?
Yeah, 100%. So to be 100% clear from the get-go, make it clear that people are pre-selecting the subscription. If not, we can get into dark patterns and a lot of complaints from customers. So make sure that the option to subscribe is easier to click and easy to like take out. So that would be like the first cautionary tale there. And so, yeah, we decided to pre-select the subscription first, and we saw an interesting result. My hypothesis was, of course, if we pre-select the subscription, we will see people subscribing more and have a higher LTV in the 2 or 3 months ahead of after the test. But I didn't expect the uplift in the short-term metrics, which is conversion rate, average revenue per user, and revenue per visitor. If you can show the test, then we have seen a conversion rate uplift in 2.3% with almost, I believe, 90% significance. But then, so that's a good thing because we're seeing the short-term metrics being impacted positively. My hypothesis is that because people are seeing the cheapest price first, because we are offering discounts with the subscription, people are more motivated to buy, or they see they don't have like the anchor of that high price. And then if we see the subscription metrics, which the ones that we are actually interested in, we're seeing that we are 40% up for subscription orders per visitor, and then subscription percentage of orders increased also 36%. So we're not just seeing increases in short-term metrics, but also the long-term metrics regarding subscriptions.
That's really the bump in conversion in the short term. That's an interesting one. And I like your hypothesis there because it's almost like you kind of have like a compare at price going on. So like, hey, that could represent what is driving that 2.3% bump in conversion. But yeah, I like your cautionary tale. Make sure it's clear what you're doing. So we had a bump in conversion rate, and we're seeing a higher percentage of total orders going on subscription. I think that like most people intuitively would say, hey, if we default the pre-selected option to subscription, we're going to see more subscriptions come in. I think like a lot of people, when they are thinking about this type of experiment, they're thinking like, hey, what are the kind of knock-on effects from that? So, hey, are you seeing people, once you started doing this, making it past like a certain point in their subscription? Like, were they making it at least as far as before we did this? And was there anything coming in from the brand side? Like, hey, I didn't realize I was subscribing. Like, what's going on kind of like the longer term horizon from this experiment?
Yeah, that's a really good question. In terms of like support, the brand didn't notice anything bad in particular. They didn't notice an increase of people saying, I want to subscribe. I didn't know that I was subscribing. So that's one thing. But you raised a really interesting point, and it's sometimes when you foster or promote subscriptions too much, you might be making people subscribe that didn't want to initially, and you might see an increase in average revenue per visitor, again, short-term metrics, and also see an increase of subscribers, but then they end up canceling the subscription after 2 or 3 weeks. So then the LTV ends up becoming worse. That's why subscription percentage, everything related to people that subscribe versus people who didn't, or subscription take rate, is actually a leading metric. The lagging metric is LTV after 60 and 90 days. The best way to see what's really happening is to use a feature that, to be honest, I haven't seen in any other A/B testing tool that can be configured out of the box. That you can tag customers or orders with a specific tag based on if they saw control on variant. And then once you have that, you see people that actually purchased on control or on variant, and then you can download the reports on Shopify and check for the average revenue per customer after like 60 and 90 days. So that way you actually make sure that you're making money in the long term, not just increasing the number of subscribers after like 15 days.
Yeah, it's a really good, really important call out, because again, if you are fostering like more subscriptions in a base that wasn't necessarily used to it, you put them on a subscription, and if they cancel after like one rotation of the subscription, then was that actually a subscriber, or was it just a one-time purchase on a discount from the compare app price? So looking at that, like those knock-on effects is very, very important.
Yeah, exactly. And when people subscribe, they usually subscribe with a free gift and also free shipping or with a discount. So you 100% need to cover that increased cost with more revenue. So it's important to get that money back after 2 or 3 months.
Amazing. So in this experiment, we saw a bump in conversion. We like what we're seeing in the long-term metrics out of this as well. But your big call outs here, like make sure it is very, very clear that people are on subscription in that default option, because you don't want a bump in support tickets or people not realizing that they are subscribed. And make sure that you're actually looking at those long-term impacts, because like you said, if you're giving a free gift, a discount or whatever on that, like we need to be making this up in the long term versus if we didn't give it to them and they just bought on one-off purchases. TLDR, make sure you're being profitable with this decision, not just getting a bump in subscriptions. So let's move to the second test, which is interesting. So before we jumped on, you were actually kind of like explaining the hypothesis to me. So do you want to just give our listeners like, hey, I was seeing this and I put this experiment into place?
Yeah. So basically the experiment was give the user the opportunity to subscribe on the collections page. And this hypothesis comes from running GA4 reports. I realized that 30% of people that added to cart were adding it on the collections page. And in that page, the brand only had the option to just add the product to cart without any subscription. So basically a one-time purchase. So with the development and design team, we decided to create a new option on that page. And yeah, it was pretty successful. The results, that's why I wanted to go with this one second. We see that the short-term metrics are, at least on IntelliJAMS, they are negative. They might be a little bit inconclusive. We didn't reach statistical significance in any of them. But then when we go to the subscription metrics, we actually see, again, an uplift. We see the subscription order per visitor is 32% up. And then subscription percentage of orders or subscription take rate is 31% up to. So contrary to the previous experiment, we see, I would say like the short-term revenue metrics are either negative or inconclusive, but then we see the actual uplift in the short-term metrics and LTV and everything related to subscriptions.
So two things inside of there. I think like one important thing here is like, hey, negative, flat, inconclusive, but hey, there's something else going on here. I think this is just a call out. Like anytime you are putting an experiment together, go in with like a very concrete hypothesis and like, hey, what do I think is going to change? Because sometimes like if you are targeting subscriptions and like subscriptions is just the strategic priority right now for you as a brand or for the brand you're working with, like it might be okay to take some losses in one spot to make them up somewhere else. Again, like profitability is kind of the name of the game here. Like we're going to make it up in the long term. So I think that's one really important call out. And then second, on the collections page. So on the collection page, is it now just the option to subscribe, or is that now defaulted to subscription as well? Are we giving optionality, or are we trying to like push people into a certain direction?
Yeah, so the way we decided to portray this hypothesis and experiment is you have like a checkbox where you can click on there, and then if you add to cart, the product is being added to cart as a subscription. But yeah, it was a little bit difficult to show that much information on the collections page because you don't have that much space to play
Minimal
around
space,
with.
yep.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a tricky one. I think there's a lot of room for improvement in terms of how we portray the option to subscribe. But yeah, definitely more room for improvement. But for now, that's the winning test.
And so last time when we said we had the uplift in conversion when you weren't necessarily expecting it, kind of any hypotheses around kind of taking a negative hit on some of the, I know it's not conclusive, but anything kind of swirling in your mind that you're maybe like, it could be this, maybe I want to test this in the future to validate that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question again. So let's take for granted that the results that we see in the test are statistically significant. If not, we're just like telling stories about numbers that don't really matter.
Yep.
But let's suppose that they're true. Conversion rate is flat, so that's telling me that offering subscriptions is not it's not damaging conversion rate. But I'm actually seeing something that I expected, which is average order value is down -2%, and the logic is pretty simple. People that are subscribing are paying less. The AOV is less. So that might be the reason why we're seeing lower average revenue per user due to a lower AOV.
Interesting. All right. So 2 specific tests there. For people who are listening, obviously this episode, we're trying to orient around subscription experiments. Any kind of, as you're playing around with subscriptions inside of IntelliJAMS, doing this experimentation, anything that you would encourage everyone to do, or anything that you've come across where you're like, hey guys, like I've made this mistake already, like don't fall into this trap? Like what kind of advice would you give to others who are about to go kind of deep into the experimentation around subscription?
Mm-hmm. So 2 things. The first one is don't assume that subscribers are better than one-time purchases. I haven't seen it personally, but I've seen a couple of colleagues running reports and showing that people that did one-time purchase usually come month after month, even though they are not subscribers. And I actually do the same with my protein shakes and powder.
Same.
I don't like them. I don't like it to buy them monthly just because I don't want to have the issue of like having 3 in my home or like pausing or canceling the subscription. So yeah, don't just assume that one-time purchases are worse than subscribers. Sometimes it's not the case. So you might be pushing for a user that's not really profitable. And the second one's like, these tests are fairly simple. You can be much more bold and courageous, so to speak. You can play around with testing like new offers and giving more discounts, or like playing around with discounts after like the second month you take out the initial discount, or add one more product on variant. There's a lot of room for improvement there. And if you're willing, so to speak, to take a hit in short-term metrics like average revenue per user because AOV is down, you might have, if you have the cash flow, you can increase the number of subscribers, the number of like people that purchase month after month, and then in general, like a more solid e-commerce business that has a higher LTV than competitors.
Yeah, like you were saying there, yes, the experiments that we ran through in this episode are simple, but they are also great things to, like, they are kind of like the bedrock or the foundation of subscription. Some of the things you were hitting on there, like I've seen some of our brands or brands that we work with do things like, yeah, testing what that offer is going to be. Is it the free gift? Is it a discount? How big of a discount do we need to give to get someone on subscription? What should our subscription intervals look like? Should they be monthly? Should they be every 3 weeks? Like, are we seeing something being more motivating? So yeah, there's a lot that you can do here. I guess final question for you before we wrap. As you're testing subscriptions, you said like, hey, we have like the immediate metrics, we have the long-term metrics. For you, what's kind of the most, like, as people are testing inside of subscriptions, is there a metric or like one thing that you think everyone should really be paying attention to? Like, if you're not paying attention to this, it's a massive miss.
Yeah, I think that you have three. The first one I would say average revenue per user, because that combines conversion rate and AOV. Ask the client, or if you're working on a brand, ask the brand if they're willing, or how much of a hit they're willing to receive for more benefit in the long term. In terms of like revenue and also profit, because if you're giving free gifts to foster a subscription and you know that subscribers have a bigger LTV or a higher LTV, how much of a hit are you willing to take? And then then short-term metrics. Then I would say the leading metrics around subscription is subscriber take rate, which is a good thing to understand or hypothesize how the LTV is gonna evolve. But again, that doesn't tell you the full story. The full story, you're gonna understand it after like 60 or 90 days that the test is running and you see the actual profit per cohort. So yeah, the first two ones tell you the beginning of the story, but the whole story is being told after 60 or 90 days.
Yep. So make sure that you tag the customers who are in these different cohorts so you can actually look at this 90 days down the road and try to evaluate it.
Exactly. If you are basing your decisions after the test ends only on subscriber take rate, you run the risk of perhaps like the LTV is lower in 60 or 90 days. So it's a good leading metric, but it doesn't tell you the whole story. So be careful with that one.
I love that. Juan, thank you so much for coming to jam with us. This was amazing.
Of course, my pleasure, Alex.